Welcome to Honeybee. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. I never thought a single joke could shake the very foundation of my marriage. But sometimes, it isn't the words themselves. It's the weight behind them, the tone, and the moment they're spoken that make all the difference. The night started out harmless enough. My wife, Anna, and I had been invited to a friend's birthday party. It was supposed to be a casual evening. Laughter, food, music, and a little escape from the ordinary routines of life. We had been married for nearly 7 years at that point. 7 years of building a home, sharing dreams, celebrating victories, and weathering storms together. Or at least, that's what I thought. That day had been exhausting for me. Work had been draining, deadlines piled up on my desk like an endless wave, and all I wanted was a quiet night in. But Anna insisted we attend. "It's been ages since we went out together," she said, her voice carrying that persuasive charm that always softened my resistance. She was right. We had been caught up in the grind of work and responsibilities. Maybe a night out would do us good. So I agreed. I remember watching her get ready. Anna had a way of making everything look effortless. She stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her dress, brushing her hair into loose curls, and adding just the right amount of makeup to highlight her natural beauty. I leaned against the doorframe, silently admiring her. For a moment, I felt lucky, proud, even that she was mine. When we finally arrived at the party, the place was buzzing. The living room was filled with people chatting, glasses clinking, and bursts of laughter rising above the music. The air smelled of roasted food and spilled wine, and colorful lights danced across the walls. Friends we hadn't seen in months rushed to greet us. I tried to shake off the fatigue of the day and enjoy myself. Conversations flowed easily, and I found myself laughing more than I expected. Anna was in her element, surrounded by people, her smile lighting up every corner she stood in. She had always been the social one, the kind of person who could walk into a room full of strangers and leave with a dozen new friends. I admired that about her, though at times it made me feel like I was standing in her shadow. I was quieter, more reserved. I liked observing, listening, taking things in. She thrived in the spotlight, while I found comfort in the background. At some point in the evening, we gathered in a circle in the living room. Someone suggested we play a light-hearted game, questions, dares, and jokes to keep the laughter rolling. I didn't think much of it. We'd played similar games before, and they were usually harmless fun. People teased each other, brought up embarrassing stories, and made playful jabs. It was a kind of atmosphere where everyone let their guard down. As the game went on, the jokes grew bolder. Friends teased each other about bad dates, embarrassing mishaps, and secrets that weren't really secrets. Laughter filled the room in waves, and I found myself chuckling along, feeling the stress of the week dissolve little by little. Then came Anna's turn. Someone asked her to tell the funniest thing she had ever done to me, something that would make the group laugh. She paused for a moment, her eyes glinting mischievously. I recognized that look. It was the same one she wore whenever she was about to deliver a punchline or pull a harmless prank. And then she said it, with a smirk on her lips and laughter already bubbling in her voice. Anna said, "Well, there was that one time I cheated on him." The room exploded in laughter before she could even finish. Some people slapped their knees, others widened their eyes in mock shock, and a few even hooted as if she had delivered the best line of the night. To them, it was just a joke, a daring, outrageous attempt at humor. But to me, it didn't land as comedy. Her words echoed in my head, louder than the music, sharper than the laughter around us. My chest tightened, and for a second, it felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. My smile faltered, and my hands grew cold. I looked at her. In that instant, it was as if time had slowed down. I studied her face, the curve of her grin, the sparkle in her eyes. She was laughing, clearly entertained by the reaction she had stirred up. But behind her laughter, I searched for something else. Some trace of guilt, some flicker of truth hidden beneath the mask of humor. And that's when I said it. I looked straight into Anna's eyes, the laughter of everyone else blurring into meaningless noise. My voice came out steady, almost too calm for what I was feeling inside. And I said, "Funny, because if you ever really did, Anna, you wouldn't be laughing right now." The words weren't loud, but they cut through the chatter like a blade. A few people caught the shift in tone and the way I held her gaze. The laughter around us dimmed into an awkward hum, like a balloon losing air. Someone cleared their throat. Someone else nervously sipped from their glass. I could almost hear the collective realization that maybe the joke had crossed a line. Anna's smile faltered, but only for a heartbeat. She quickly brushed it off with a laugh and waved her hand dismissively. "Relax, it's a joke." "Come on, lighten up," she said, her tone carrying a hint of irritation. She wanted the moment to dissolve, to fade back into the comfortable chaos of the party. But for me, it didn't fade. The thought gnawed at me. Why that joke? Why choose something so sharp, so cruel, when she could have picked any of the dozens of silly, harmless stories from our years together? She could have teased me about the time I burned dinner so badly we had to order takeout, or the vacation where I got sunburned like a lobster, or even my terrible attempts at dancing. But no, she chose that. My chest felt heavy. I forced a tight smile, not wanting to cause a scene in front of everyone. I excused myself and slipped into the kitchen, pretending to look for a drink. Really, I just needed air. My thoughts spun in circles, each one more suffocating than the last. I remembered little details, moments that I had dismissed before, but now replayed in my head under a harsher light. Times when she had been working late. Unexplained texts she quickly swiped away, sudden bursts of secrecy that I convinced myself were harmless. Maybe I had been naive. Maybe her joke wasn't entirely a joke after all. A hand touched my shoulder, pulling me back. It was Mark, one of my closest friends. He lowered his voice. "Hey, you all right, man? That was kinda rough." I gave a half-hearted shrug. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just need some air." He studied me for a second, like he knew I wasn't fine, but also knew this wasn't the place for me to unravel. With a small nod, he walked away, leaving me with my thoughts. When I finally returned to the living room, Anna was in the middle of another story, laughing with a group like nothing had happened. She glanced at me briefly, her smile tightening when she saw my expression, but she didn't break her performance. She was determined to keep the spotlight on her, to bury the tension under layers of laughter. I stayed quiet the rest of the night. I nodded when spoken to, forced a laugh when necessary, but inside I was elsewhere, caught in a storm of doubt and hurt. Eventually, we left the party. The car ride home was suffocatingly silent. The only sounds were the hum of the engine and the faint music playing from the radio, which neither of us bothered to turn off. I kept my eyes on the road, my grip tight on the steering wheel, while Anna stared out the window, her reflection in the glass looking as distant as the passing streetlights. Finally, she broke the silence. "You're really going to be upset over a joke?" she said, her voice sharper now, more defensive. Everyone was laughing. It was supposed to be funny. Why you always take things so seriously? I exhaled slowly, trying to keep my voice steady. Because cheating isn't funny, Anna. It's not some silly story to get a laugh out of people. Do you have any idea how that sounded? How it felt? She turned toward me, her eyes flashing with frustration. "You're overreacting. It was just a stupid line. That's all." "Then why that line?" I asked, finally glancing at her. "Why, out of everything you could have said, you picked that?" She hesitated, just for a moment, and that hesitation was louder than any answer. She looked away, crossing her arms, retreating into silence. And in that silence, doubts grew like weeds in my chest. When we got home, I expected her to bring it up again, to explain, to apologize maybe. Instead, she went straight to the bedroom, changed into her night clothes, and slipped under the covers without another word. I stood in the living room for a long time, staring at the faint glow of the lamp, my thoughts heavier than ever. I replayed everything in my head, the look on her face, the tone of her voice, the way she laughed too easily as if to cover something up. Maybe it truly was just a joke. Maybe I was being paranoid. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted, and no matter how much I wanted to believe in her, I couldn't unhear her words. That night, I lay awake beside her, listening to her steady breathing while my own mind refused to rest. The distance between us in bed felt wider than ever, like a canyon that had quietly opened up and was now impossible to cross. Days passed, but the tension didn't fade. We went about our routines, exchanged polite words, and maintained the appearance of normalcy. But every time I looked at her, I remembered that moment at the party. Every time she smiled, I wondered if it was hiding something I didn't want to see. I tried to push the thoughts away, to remind myself of the love we had built, the life we had shared. But doubts are like shadows. They grow longer the more you try to ignore them. Looking back now, I realized that her joke wasn't just a harmless slip. It was a crack in the foundation, a glimpse into something deeper that she wasn't ready to admit, and I wasn't ready to confront. That night marked a shift in our marriage, one I couldn't undo with reassurance or blind trust. Because sometimes the scariest truths aren't the ones shouted in anger. They're the ones whispered through laughter, disguised as jokes. And I'll never forget the way she laughed when she said she cheated on me, nor the way my heart sank when I realized it might not have been a joke at all.